All right, it is Daryl King, and it is time. Sharing the Mindsets right here in Richmond Hill at our office. And we have a very, very special guest today, Mark Weisleder. And I'll tell you what, this gentleman was on 2 years ago, and I learned so much in that information session that I'm so excited today that he came in and honored us to be here to share, his wisdom in that, because I'll tell you what, there's so much you have to know today to protect our clients, to protect ourselves, and to make sure everything goes smoothly. So we're going to get a lot of that today. So Mark is a senior partner at RealEstateLawyers.ca LLP and has been practicing law for approximately 40 years. Mark's books for real estate agents, buyers, sellers, and landlords continue to be bestsellers. Mark has appeared as a guest real estate expert on CTV, Global TV, BNN, City TV, CBC Radio, Newstalk 1010, and he's been on Sharing the Mindsets before, so it's a second time here. So the great part is him and his team can make real estate transactions simple and remote video signing service with their competitive flat rate legal fees so that you can do your entire real estate transaction from the comfort of your home. So contact Mark directly. We'll give out all his information. So let's give Mark a great big hand, everybody. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Daryl.
Right.
It's great. What a good-looking crowd. I can't see everybody online, but it's a good-looking
So
crowd.
if you ever go to Toronto Real Estate Board, he's got the big booth as you walk in there, and they're serving the coffees and espressos. He's always got the largest lineup right there, right? So he probably has to pay the biggest rent fee to be there. Remember, location, location, location. That goes with everything. We're on Yonge Street, location, location, location. So, I learned that in almost 30-some years ago in real estate, location, location, and location. So nothing has changed, correct?
Nothing has changed.
Right? So if you're thinking about buying and selling, make sure you pick great realtor, great lawyer, and a great location. So anything you want to add before I start? Other than they're a great looking group and full of enthusiasm, willing to go hustle for you?
No, it's just really great to be here. And even though I've been here in the business for so long, certain principles are the same today as they were 40 years ago. When you're careful in everything you do, you're going to be successful. Just remember that. Be careful in every little thing. It's not the big things. Just be careful, and you'll see everything else will follow.
So guys, sometimes we may get tired or a little complacent, whatever. You can't. You are dealing with people's largest investments. So they depend on you to be sharp and articulate. It's so important. So the first question I've got for Mark today is, you've been practicing real estate for around 40 years. Looking back, what first inspired you to get into this profession? And do you ever imagine you become such a well-known voice in the industry? Because your name is very, very well respected. You wrote many books. You've got lots of accolades for everything. What inspired you? Because being a lawyer, I thought I was going to be one. But 7 years of schooling was a little tough, right?
You may not know this about me, but about 7 years before I became a lawyer, I was a comedian at Yuck Yucks.
Young and Eglinton?
I was a comedian when Howie Mandel was a comedian at Yuck Yucks. Wow. You've heard of Howie Mandel.
Yes. I know.
You didn't hear of me, because there might have been hundreds who never became successful. But I learned, early on that it wasn't for me. To make people laugh is one of the hardest things. But I found very quickly that as a real estate lawyer, who everyone expects to be boring as hell, if I can be entertaining, it just makes it so simple. And I remember the first time I spoke, I think it was a RE/MAX thing. There were 3,000 people there coming to hear me speak. And somebody said to me, "Aren't you nervous? You're going out in front of 3,000 people." And I said, "Listen, I've heard. You piece of crap, get off the stage." And when you've heard that at Yuck Yucks, trust me, nothing's going to bother me from a crowd. And so, but the point is, everything in your background, every job you ever had will contribute to your success as a real estate agent. You know, you're a package. Not all of you just became realtors right away. I used what I learned and I applied it. And that's why I became a great teacher, because I liked it. And I got to, you know, be with people and converse. And you should look at that too. There's no bad experience. Everything you've done to bring you to this point just makes you a better agent for your client.
You guys, the number one thing we talked about earlier, being the best that you possibly can be. So you have to practice your skills every single day. There cannot be a day that goes by, maybe Saturday or Sunday possibly, but Monday to Friday, you need to be practicing and honing your skills to become the best that you are, that when you have the time to look after somebody, you're going to be the best. That I know if I had to send Mark a client to look after their legal things, I'm not going to worry about it, because I know that I'm, giving him someone that I look up to and that I know they're going to be looked after. And when someone gives you a referral, if a client gives you a referral, you want to make sure you go out of your way to give the best service possible to that person you're referred to. So, I never knew he knew Howie Mandel, and he competed with Howie. Now, if you guys know Howie, he's one of the top paid comedians out there, right? Canadian guy, right? He went to Newtonbrook even. So right here, local school in North York, and he's become huge. So you couldn't beat Howie, so you decided to, well, if I can't beat him, I'll go compete another way.
No complaints.
Has he called you for any real estate? Right? We'll have to reach that out to him. When I see him next, I'll reach that out to him. So, guys, so he figured that he can't be a Howie Mandel, but that's why he's such a great speaker, because he's had time to learn to entertain people. So entertaining clients, entertaining realtors. So that's a big chance from comedian to lawyer, but we'll take that. So you've written best-selling books, appeared on national TV, and helped thousands of clients and realtors. Looking back, what's been one of the most rewarding moments in your career? And then I'm going to ask you the opposite of that, right?
Well,
what would be your biggest reward? Obviously, getting your license after 7 years, that's very painstaking to do that.
I think, when I got married, my wife is from the United States, and she came here reluctantly to live here. So I made her a promise. I said, if you're not happy here, I will pass the bar in New York, and I will move with you to New York. Just give it a couple of years. So she came here, and I took the bar in New York on the same day that John F. Kennedy Jr. took the bar and failed, and I passed that time. That was a great moment for me. I'm actually a registered lawyer in New York, but because my wife liked it here, I never had to go to use it. So that was a great moment for me, to be able to do that. And
well, you passed the bar here and you passed the bar there.
Passed the bar there.
So you know what it tells me? He likes pain. The more pain you can withhold in your business, because every day getting up early and working late at night, like I didn't get home last night till getting close to 11 by the time I got home. I started early in the morning. So that was basically at least a 14-hour day, right? So for most people, that's, it'll break them, but I'm used to doing those days. So you have to have a strong threshold for pain and commitment. So the fact that you could not only do the bar here, you backed it up by doing the bar in New York, right? And even John F. couldn't do it. So
he eventually did.
Of course,
and
became the president of the United States.
Then he did.
Right? I love John F. John F. Kennedy.
Junior.
Okay.
One who passed away in the plane crash, unfortunately.
So what might have been your biggest disappointment on the other side of that. Because, guys, and this is what I try to stress here. You're going to have highs and you're going to have lows. So try and keep the lows at a minimal and keep your highs in between the lines. So what would you say would have been one of your most frustrating things that you had to endure?
Yeah, I think like everybody, when you have clients that are incredibly horrible to deal with, and no matter what you do, you can't please them. And I found early in my career, this used to really bother me, but I learned that sometimes you just can't please everybody. You do your best, but the main thing that I found when dealing with these types of clients is they don't want you to argue with them because they don't accept anything you say. They just want you to listen to them. Just listen to them. That's all they want, just because nobody listens to them. They complain all day about everything. Part of my career, I did the work for Bell Mobility. So I would do a lot of their leases and dealer agreements. I would walk into their call center and they would have these young 23-year-old kids picking up the phone. They would come into work so full of zest and energy. And by the end of the day, they were wiped out. Can you imagine getting yelled at 8 hours a day from customers calling about their bill? And I said to them, I can make it very easy for you. And they said, how? Offer every customer $1,000 credit on their bill. We'll be broke in about 2 weeks, but you'll make every customer happy, because otherwise they're never going to be happy. And really, an angry cell phone customer calling in about their bill, getting pushed to different departments, that's your clients. Your clients are crazy because they're moving. Think about that. Moving. It's not just an emotional word. Moving. They're changing jobs, changing life, changing school, kids. There is so much going on in their lives. They're so stressed out. That's why they complain about everything. So you've got to understand that when you're in front of them. Understand where they're coming from. You have to be the calm voice of reason to answer all their questions, look after all their problems.
Right. Guys, it's not easy. Realize one of the biggest stresses in life is public speaking, right? Number 2 is flying. But, selling a home, buying or selling a home, could be one of their most emotional things that they go through in life. And in some cases, they're going through divorces, like very, very ugly divorces. Like we have one right now that we've got going on, and, it's not easy for both participants because they agree to disagree already, and now they got to sell the family home and that. So now they got to face changes they don't know about. So they might normally be nice, but during this case, they might be a little short-fused. So and that's why I say you've got to build that mental toughness up, that, you've got to be able to sort of calm them down and work them through it. It takes an art. It just doesn't happen. So the better you are with people, the better you are that you can move them forward. Because, where probably 80 or 85% of your clients are going to be super happy you sold their house, bought them a house, or they've got them an investment. That 10% or whatever, no matter what you're going to do, they're never going to be happy. There isn't anything that you can do that's going to make them happy. Sell their house over asking price. They're going to find something that they just want to bitch and complain. You can't take it personally, but you just got to be able to handle it, right? So you're going to have your highs, and, after someone may scream at you or whatever, you're going to have some lows. But just take it in stride and keep moving forward. And as long as you gave 110% of your best, that's all you got to remember. You gave your very best each and every time. Because I know if I give you a client, you and your team are going to give your very best to make sure it goes down as smoothly as possible. Will there be hiccups?
Always.
Right? Guys, there always can be hiccups. It just is what it is. It's the nature of the game. So this is how you have to look at it. Now, you've seen in the real estate industry evolve over the last 4 decades, really. What's one change that has the biggest impact on the way realtors do business today?
To me, one of the greatest miracles in real estate that I lived through was when everything went on the computer. You know, like I remember closing deals where I had to go to the registry office with a bunch of papers and checks. And if we were buying a house, selling a house in Toronto and buying a house north of Steeles, I'd have to be in Toronto, giving checks to a lawyer, waiting in line to register. Then I'd have to drive to Newmarket to close the purchase. And by the end of the day, you were completely... We have to pay kids just to stand in the registration line and time it. So give me the papers, like I'm in line. Like it was like so the ability to just do everything online, it was like a miracle. And I want to explain to you, how many of you actually use the online title system yourself? You see, I don't understand this because you can search the title to any property in Ontario for $33.60. And you should be doing this before you go on any listing presentation. And I'm going to explain why.
They do. They're just not doing it the way you say it. But you guys, so
no, and let me explain.
Is the way that we're talking about here.
Yeah,
right?
It's not just going into GeoWarehouse. It's actually buying the title page, because too many times I've seen in the last 6 months, brokerages are calling me, telling me, my deal is closing tomorrow. Yeah. The seller lawyer just called us and said they want the entire deposit to be sent to them. Not just the money over the commission, the commission. Why? Because there's not enough to pay the lender. And if the lender is not paid, the deal won't close. So the brokerage says, well, how am I getting paid? Well, you're going to have to sue the seller who has no money anymore to do this. What if you're the buyer brokerage? You get nothing. You can't even sue for it because you only collect if the seller agent collects. So before you waste any money marketing, pull the title. You'll see. It'll say the value of every mortgage. Oh, the property's worth $1 million. I see there's a mortgage for $950. How am I getting paid? So you ask, I want to see a statement. I want to do that. I can't stress enough just doing that to protect yourself. Also, you can find out the details of any easement on the property. You can say to the seller, I see there's an easement here. Where is it? The buyer may want to put a swimming pool in the backyard. You'll see if there's a rental contract on title. It'll show. So you can say to the seller, when I come over, have your rental contract out. I want to make sure the buyer can assume it, because if they can't assume it, you're going to have to pay it out. So you see, think about that presentation versus the guy who comes in after you. I cash back commission. What else? I cash back commission. That's what I do. Do you understand there's a difference? So not only by searching title, you can also learn, by the way, if it's joint tenants. It's right on the page. So if somebody's died, you can find out in 5 seconds that whether it's survivorship. So many good things, and it's $33. I can't stress enough. You'll win the listing by doing this, and you'll make sure that this aggravation never happens to you. That's what it means by using tools now that we never had available before to help you do your job better.
So realize 99, or well, I don't know, even that even would be that high, but going to an impact and geo warehouse and getting the information. But this is taking it one level above that and finding out everything from A to Z about the property. Because today, there's a lot of people that are underwater, right? That, you know, they bought it here, and unfortunately, the market has changed and it's only here. So, you know, I see it every single day out there. So doing your homework and protecting. So that's why you make sure that you get enough commission to make sure, or deposit, that you can get it in trust, that at least you can get paid out at the end of the day. And then the lenders can go fight with them at the end for the shortfall instead of you, right? Because now you spent time, money, and effort to go into it, and you want to get paid for those efforts. It's very important, right? So if every realtor could improve just one part of the transaction process, what do you think, and this really, I think, would come to that when you just talked about, would prevent the most problems down the road? And would that be the answer? Or is there another one?
That was mostly protecting your commission. I want you to protect your commission. And just so you know, as an aside, powers of sales are happening now. You know, that's when the bank is selling. The bank is selling. The only good news about a power sale, you're guaranteed to get paid commission, because you get paid commission even if the lender loses money on the deal. So that's not a terrible deal to be part of. You just have to make sure the buyer does a proper inspection, because they accept everything as is. And don't be afraid of when the lender says HST in addition. It's not. It's a resale home. The only time it's ever HST in addition is if it was a daycare operating out of the whole house, or it was a full-time Airbnb that they were charging HST. Since over 95% are not, don't worry about that. You know, don't be afraid of power of sales. If you understand it and you do a proper inspection, it's very good. But when you ask me, you know, what should you, be keying on? What are the biggest headaches for people before closing? What's the biggest headache at the final pre-closing visit that you get on every deal? What is it? What does the buyer say or complain about? Anyone? The house is what?
Not well kept.
No. It's a mess. And there's no way the seller is going to clean everything and do all the fixing and everything they promised. So they call you or the lawyer, and what do they say? They say what? The house is a mess, so what? What should I do? Hold back money. How many of you say to the lawyer, hold back money because the house is a mess? There is no right to hold back money unless the agreement says so. So I have clauses that I prepared. So here's a clause that says, the parties agree that the buyer lawyer will hold back $1,000 on the day of closing until the buyer verifies within 24 hours that the house is in a clean and broom swept condition. If it's not, then the money to clean it will come from the holdback, and the balance will be paid to the seller. Okay, so let's just stop for a second. How many of you think that that's not such a bad clause, right?
If you're a buyer agent, it's good.
But if you're a listing
agent,
if you're a listing agent, and an offer comes in today, because people have read my clause, and it has that clause, will you let the seller sign it? Why wouldn't you let the seller sign it? It's pretty fair. The answer is, who's going to decide the house is clean? That's a lawsuit that costs more than $1,000. So the seller will say, I'll never see that money. But you see, without that clause, no lawyer is allowed to hold back money. So the answer is, anticipate this. Be a pest every day to the listing agent. The house is a mess. The house is a mess. When are you going to clean the house? You want me to send a bin? I'll send a bin to help you clean the house. Be a pest. It's okay. because you're being a pest for your client. So they don't yell at you after closing, and then you have to pay shut-up money to clean the house. How many of you have had to pay shut-up money to the buyers who are disappointed, even though it's not your fault? So, that's what I mean. Anticipate these things happening and be a pest. Whenever something's broken, the oven is broken at the final visit, I can't hold back money. But work on it. Work with the listing agent. Send me pictures. I'll work with the seller lawyer, and if necessary, I'll send some pretty tough emails, because I had a situation where a couple pregnant, expecting their first baby, they bought a cottage where they were going to live, and it had 2 docks, and they were closing maybe 3 weeks before she was due. So you could tell how crazy she was already. Before closing, the seller sold one of the dogs. They sold it. They had no right. The agreement said 2 dogs. And so we said to the seller lawyer, you sold the dog. What's going on? He said, well, they priced it. It's $2,000. They'll give the buyer $2,000. That's what the dog cost. But they said, you can't find the dog up there for $2,000. A new dog is $10,000. We're up paying $10,000. That dog was only worth $2,000. So I sent an email to these people and I said, here's a case that I found in small claims court where a seller cheated a buyer by fraudulently replacing the appliances before closing. And he got caught replacing appliances. They took 2 out, put 2 lousy ones in. The judge, of course, once he saw the proof, he made them replace brand new appliances. But then he also said, I'm going to give a $10,000 extra penalty against the seller because they deliberately committed fraud. You're allowed to get that in small claims court. So I sent him the case and I said, this is not about $2,000. I'm going to ask for $10,000 in small claims court because your people stole the dog and they knew it. P.S. I got an offer for $8,000 on the day of closing, and the buyers were so happy. And they didn't have to close. But the point is, I'll fight for people. You've got to fight, but you've also got to help. You've got to help because you want that referral afterwards. And if people are suing each other in small claims court, you're not going to get a referral. So you've got to help. Anticipate those closing problems. I can't stress enough. And then help the lawyer solve them. And that's a great thing to do for your clients going forward.
So I'm just going to add on to that because that's awesome. Because like I said, the thing is worth $2,000 if they bought it maybe 10 years ago. Unfortunately, you can't buy the dog today, right? So that's worth $10,000. But here's what if you're the buyer agent, what I would teach you to do is make sure you take pictures of all the appliances, make sure they're all working. And most times they're not, even get the serial numbers, right? Take an extra few minutes where you do the inspection, take a picture of the serial number. But when you're doing the offer, what you should be doing is made tag side by side with an ice maker, water maker, Miele dishwasher. I actually put in the brands. You should always, 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 guys, put in the brand and put it right in the offer because it says 2 stoves. They had one downstairs. 2 stoves. Doesn't say existing stoves. It's just saying you're asking for 2 stoves. Well, the one downstairs happened to be brand new. They just bought it. So they're just going to go, again, replace it with an old stove. And they could do that, right? Because you're not being deliberate.
So you have to understand, builders, they don't like giving you the HST rebate right away. They're nervous. You see, HST's been around for 15 years. This is not new. So anytime you bought a condominium or a house that cost more than $500,000 in the last 15 years, the real price of that condo was not $500, it was $524. It was not 1,000,000. It was 1,024,000. It wasn't 700. It was 724. However, if you were buying and moving into the condo, then you would give your ability to get that 24 to the builder. So you would only pay the builder 700, and the builder would go to CRA and say the buyer's moving in, give us 24. But if you were renting that unit, you would have to pay 724, but then you would go to CRA and collect the 24,000 yourself. So that's been around for 15 years. But you know what happened? Buyers started lying. So at closing, they didn't have 24. So they said to the builder, we're moving in. So they paid the builder 700. The builder sent in the 24 to get it back from the government. And then the government finds out the buyer has sold the property. So they say to the builder, you're not entitled to the 24, give it back. And then the builder has to go looking for the buyer
Who's
to
left
get
town.
the 24,000 back, who's disappeared. So what happened? Builders just said, to hell with it. If we suspect the buyer is not moving in, no rebate. We want 724. So now think about it. That was with a 24,000 rebate. How do you think the builder's going to look at 130,000 rebate? Oh, we're just going to give it to the buyer and risk this buyer flipping the property, and now we got a $130,000 headache? That's why you have to, I come back to, how much am I giving you on closing? That's it. But buyers have to understand, they got to move in. They have to move in. The builder doesn't see a moving truck on closing, give us that extra money. You go to CRA and get that 130,000. So that's the lesson you need to understand. You need to understand the history of HST. What brought us here. It's great that the government did this for a year, but understand. Does that help you a little bit to understand it better when if you happen to go into a sales
It
office?
is confusing because, like I say, some will collect it, some will say they'll deduct it from it, and there's no real clear-cut picture on it. Even when you call CRA, they don't have even a clear-cut picture on it, right? So, so you got to be very cautious in that. And me, I'm going to say leave it up to the lawyers and the builders at that point. Because I can't really tell them that the CRA is going to give them that 130 back, or the builder is, as long as I know the builder is going to give them that reduction and they're signing off on that, it's great. Because that's now what I'm getting the builders to do, that they're going to give them that reduction up front.
So there's a builder that says, I'll give you the 130, but you have to register something on closing to me that says you will not sell for 2 years. You can't sell for 2 years. Or you got to pay me back.
And the rebate's got to go back.
130,000, because by then there's no more rebates. So you see, builders and their lawyers, they're nervous about this and they're trying to think of ways. But that may not be the end of the world. At least the buyer gets that 130 on closing. They just can't flip it for a couple of years. So understand it and remember the question, what are we paying you on closing? That is the key thing. The bank needs to know that. The lender needs to know that. That's the key question when you walk in the sales office.
So the HST, GST is not so clear cut and dry. So, you have to take precautions that, I would always speak to the lawyer before finalizing it, whatever, because builders saying, okay, we're going to deduct it, but okay, what is it on the agreement of purchase and sale? HST, GST included or rebated? Because lots of times then they got to sign for the rebate back from the government to the builder, which is an easy enough thing, as long as you're moving into it, right? But if you don't move into it, then there's no HST, GST rebate. If you're going to rent it out, you can rent it out and still get your...
You still get your rebate, but you have to apply for it.
Yeah, you've got to apply for it. So there's different ways that it's sent, that it's handled. And you as the realtor, if you're doing the offer, you need to make sure that you're covering all the different angles that may come up and smack you in the face. Because the first thing they're going to come and blame is you. Every time. So here's something you may or may not know. So it's for 1 year. But let's say I sign up now from a new builder. And it's supposed to be for 1 year. And I think it was done in February or March, whatever. So do I have to be closed then or just signed up? And I think they got 2 years to close this, right?
So if you're buying a house to live in, as long as you sign the deal before
the
March
deadline.
31st, and the house is finished before December 31st, 2031,
Is it 31?
you're okay.
Okay.
If you're buying an investment, it has to be finished by December 31st, 29.
Is it 28?
Now that-
29?
That already, you're reaching the stage where, and the agreement says that if they're late and you don't get the rebate because they're late, too bad. You understand? So investments, I would be a little nervous about that. If you're buying to live 4 years, it'll be okay right now. But it's as long as you sign before March 31st of this year, of next year.
So guys, so that's a very crucial because I was thinking it was 28, but it's 29 for the investors. But you see most buildings, are they on time?
No, never.
Well, especially right now, right? You see how many, so you see the government now is taking for a lot of the big high-rise guys that have the pull, and the government's giving them 70, 80, 90 million, $100 million to turn their condos that they couldn't sell into rentals, right? So the one thing I like about it, it's giving lots of people jobs, right? But there's still, the builder will still own the building. They're going to make double the profit in the end. But then you think they're ever going to try and convert them back into condos later on?
I don't know. I think one of the positives is how many of you are seeing a better rental market for tenants right now? More availability, prices coming down. And you should remember this because it used to be impossible to sell a home with a tenant. Now, because there are options for people, you can actually approach the tenant with alternatives for a cash for keys deal. And I can't stress enough, you've got to get the tenant out before you list. Because the delays, 6 to 9 months, most buyers will lose their interest rate while the tenant is dragging this along, and you're not going to get paid commission. The answer is meet with the tenant before you lift, take 3 or 4 other rentals and say, we want to move you out and make you happy. We'll pay your moving costs, and make a deal. When people say how much, whatever it takes is a better deal. The seller can sell right away. You can fix it up, stage it right, and you're going to get paid quicker. Like that, to me, is the answer to selling properties with tenants. These clauses with extensions and courts and everything else, they never close and you don't get paid. So please remember what I'm saying. Try to do that. I can help you. But the point is, what are you doing? You're going to the tenant and saying, the seller can't sell. You see the market, they can't afford this. And you know what you should do? You should offer to sell to the tenant. So you've been such a good tenant. We'd like to sell the place to you. I have a mortgage broker. Maybe you could work it out. Now, I get it. 9 times out of 10, the tenant will say, I can't afford it. However, what does it show? Respect. Instead of just handing him that N12 notice, get out in 60 days. Then he gets hysterical, he goes to a paralegal, and 60 days becomes 9 months. That's not it. That doesn't help you get paid any commission. And so treat everybody with respect. The tenants and the owners and the clients, and you'll get deals closed quick. I want you to close deals, and one of the last headaches that I'll face Friday is people buying and selling this Friday before the long weekend. You have no idea what a nightmare this is going to be.
Can you imagine if it had to be the old days?
Friday, all day. Even on the computer, And I try to talk people out of it. Don't close both deals on the Friday. No, they have to save money. Because if a buyer says to the seller, I'm sorry, I need a 1-day extension. 1 day from Friday is Tuesday. In the meantime, the seller's on a truck at the new place, and because their sale didn't close, they can't close their purchase. And you know what happens? Their seller has also sold. And that leads to a train wreck. That's what we call it, real estate. We call it a train wreck when 4 or 5 deals can't close because one buyer needed 1 day on a Friday.
On a long weekend.
On a long weekend. That's a train wreck. So some people have no choice. They have to close on the same day. So as an agent, this is how you protect your people. Go to the buyer and say, are you selling on the same day? No? You have a mortgage with the bank? Okay. Then go to your seller. Are you buying? No? Okay. Now at least it's condensed. If you need an extension, you can make it happen. But at least that's how you protect people when they're buying and selling, and make sure the lawyers are open till 6 o'clock on Friday to make sure money is wired so they don't leave early. Because then that's the worst when deals can't close because the lawyer said, well, we didn't get the money at 5, we were left for the long weekend. That cannot happen, to you. I had an elderly client. She was 80 years old. She was selling her house to move into a condo. She couldn't get a bridge. She had to close both deals on the Friday before the long weekend. I remember calling the buyer lawyer. I said, look, I'm sorry. I called a month before closing. I have to tell you, I act for this 80-year-old woman. She needs your money to buy a condo same day. Do you have a mortgage? He said, yes, don't worry, Mark. We have a bank mortgage. I said, thank you. I had it in my calendar 2 days before closing. I called him back. I said, it's me again. I just wanted to make sure you have the money for Friday to close. He said, don't worry, Mark. We're good. So I just, it's 5 o'clock. I'm getting ready on Friday to go home. And my clerk calls me. Yeah, the buyer needs an extension for a day. I said, she's going to have a heart attack. She's on her way to the condo. And I got to tell her she can't move in. So first, I call the seller lawyer and I say, look, I can't close. Can I have an extension till Tuesday? He said, it's okay. The place is empty. Don't worry about it. We'll close Tuesday. So now I'm about to pick up the phone. I have to call this woman. I hope she doesn't have a heart attack. My clerk calls me back. Mark? Yep. She's in the condominium. I said, how could she be in the condominium? We didn't give her keys and we didn't close. She got to the concierge and said, I'm here. And they let her in. I still remember what I said to the clerk. I said, I left the office 15 minutes ago. I have no idea what you just said. I arranged the extension. Just tell her maybe to have her kids bring food over. She was smarter than everybody. And she was in, nobody knew. We closed on Tuesday. Everything worked out. But I don't recommend this for your own clients. But you see, that's looking after people, like going beyond, try to help them bridge, find an alternative because you don't want that situation with them on a truck and nowhere to go.
Well, let's say you get 3 or 4. Who's responsible for the first person? For everybody?
You see, that's a good question. Who pays? So the first person who couldn't close, should they pay for 5 deals not closing? No. They have no money. People do this because they don't have any money. And so the seller says, well, no, this one person wants this money. Yeah, but okay, I'm not going to accept an extension for a day. Well, if you don't accept an extension, you can't close your deal. So you see, everybody yells and screams. Eventually, virtually no fees are paid. People just have.
Well, they always after someone's like.
They're always screaming, yelling. Everybody's screaming, yelling. But this is why some lawyers, they won't even take a purchase and sale on the same day because they know there's so much hysterics over this, so try to avoid it is really the lesson. But if you have to deal with it, learn how to protect both the buyer and the seller so that it goes smoothly.
So I want to add another question to that one on closing. So I just sold my house. The closing day is, say, today for argument's sake. I have until 6:00. Is that the time that I have to make sure that I'm cleaned out and everything's done? House is clean, broom swept and everything. Because sometimes, the guys are trying to move in, they're at 10 and 11 o'clock. The money hasn't even transferred, or it may have already taken place, but they legally have till 6:00. Is that the true answer?
It's a good question, because
This on closing day.
this is on closing day.
And most people think once the money transfers hands, so she bought my house and the lawyers gave the money at 12 o'clock. I'm still there getting a few things out of there. I got to clean the house and I'm figuring I have till 6:00. And really, I think the contract says legally, I have until 6:00 to vacate and have the place in broom swept condition. But meanwhile, they've got their truck there. They're at the door and they're saying, yeah, we've already closed. We want to come in.
So it's a very good question, and Daryl is right. The contract says you have till 6:00. There was one case only on this where the deal closed, the buyer showed up with a moving truck at 6:00, and the sellers were still in there. The sellers didn't leave until 9:00 at night. The buyer's movers left and charged the buyer $1,000 to come back the next day. The sellers had to pay it because they were not out by 6:00. Now, this is why I try to say to people, arrange to move in the day after closing. What you need to do is on the day of closing, go check everything. Go in there, see for damages, things not working, take pictures, do that. Don't rush with moving trucks to move in, but sometimes they can't be helped. But, Daryl's right. It's possible the deal is closed at 1:00. We sent the money to the seller. The deed is registered online. The keys are given to the buyer. We're ready to close, but the seller needs more time. And I get buyers who are complaining about this, and I just say, they have until 6. Try to be patient. Because you don't want them getting angry and breaking stuff on the way out the door, damaging stuff on the way out the door. So the answer is and you can see how it makes everybody hysterical. You can help too by just calming down the temperature, congratulating everybody, take a glass of wine over there, we'll celebrate, and they'll move in when they're out, kind of thing. You can help reduce the tension.
I tell you, you have to help. Because the last thing you want them to do is change in barbs. Because what was once, whatever, that it can get pretty nasty at that point. There's no reason for it to happen. But, as a buyer, you want in the house as soon as the money's changed hands. As a seller, legally, you have till 6:00. And most people do not know that. So I've seen many times the moving trucks been at the house 9:00 in the morning. And, the guys are still, the other moving trucks are trying to take the stuff out. So one's trying to move in and the other one's trying to take stuff out. But legally and technically, they have till 6:00 to have it. If it says broom swept condition, whatever allows you to have it in there, they can, and then clean it all up. But, so you need to find out who's buying their place, where they're coming from. If you can bridge one day, bridge is not that expensive, right? If you bridge. So let's say sell their house, I'm taking possession of my house the next day, whatever. But then where do I go for one day? That's the other problem, right? The guys are buying my house. So there's lots of things that you got to be careful and look after and watch. We've done thousands and thousands, and most of them have gone off very, very clean. But there's that one exception that you say that guy couldn't close in that day, especially now. They've been pre-approved for the mortgage, everything's fine. That's why you need to touch base with the agent even. Is everything, they got all their funds together? Because the last minute, oh no, the mortgage didn't give them the money, where they need another 2 or 3 days to get things cleared up. So again, they're already moving out, and you go 2 or 3 train wrecks.
It's a very good point. How many of your clients have to go to a private lender because the bank won't approve them?
Lots
So
today.
a private lender, as you know, they charge fees and they charge higher interest rate. People accept that. But what you don't understand is private lenders must have their own lawyer represent them. If it's a bank and I'm acting for the buyer, I act for the buyer and the bank. It's easy for me. I get the money from the bank, I close the deal. But with a private lender, they have to hire their own lawyer. And their lawyer has a list of demands that are like a nightmare to fulfill. For a bank, you could sign everything online. The lawyer says, no, I want an original signature. This delays things. And then you need to get the money. And until that lawyer is satisfied, there's no money. So what happens? 4:30 on the day of closing, the lawyer says, well, it's late. We'll do it tomorrow. We'll do it tomorrow. The seller needs the money. We'll do it tomorrow. You see, and then the deal has to be extended. So if you're in a deal where your buyer has to go to a private lender, understand that in advance so they do it quick so that the money gets there in time to close the deal. I've had too many where we have to ask for an extension because we don't have the money from the private lender because the lawyer is not satisfied. And it's just the way it is with all these private lenders. So remember that. Make sure the financing's arranged. It's not enough, but especially with a private lender, make sure that it's timely so the deal will close.
It's so important, guys, that you follow up before. You can't just say, okay, I left it to the lawyers and supposed to close at 5 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever time today. You need to do your due diligence 2 weeks out and then week in, week in to make sure that everything is still in place. Everything's good? You know, Mark, we got a closing today. Your clients got their financing, got their moving, and everything else like that. Everything's good?
So,
Any issues?
well, you asked me not to name names, so I'm not going to name names. But, you know, I've had situations where there's not enough money.
That's always the
deal.
biggest problem.
There's not enough money to close the deal. And so the other lawyer will call me and say, you know, there's not enough money to close the deal. If I call my agent to reduce the commission, will you call your agent to reduce the commission? Because that way we'll have enough money to close. So I say to this person, who refers business to you? Deadbeats who can't pay their bills or real estate agents? Why are you even asking me this question? If I'm the seller lawyer, I get the seller on the phone, go get the money. I don't care if you beg, borrow, or steal it. You made a deal. What are you asking the agent to pay their commission to subsidize you? Go get the money. Now, if the agents call me up and say, Mark, we met, the seller can't do it, we've agreed to give a little bit of money. Okay, you approach me, you want to do it? Fine. But I would never ask another lawyer that question because it's a terrible thing. It's your client. The agent did nothing wrong, you know, and so that bothers me. I don't understand when people ask me the question because how do you get business? By telling agents to reduce commission? That's how they're going to refer you more clients? Anyway, you ask me what bothers me? That bothers me.
Right? So there's a lot of things that you got to take preemptive and take caution. It's not just, hey, I've sold the property, I'm done, it's going to be complete. Guys, you need to make sure, that's why when we sign listings, we sign for a length of time that we can continue the follow up from everything from A to Z right up until closing date. And even after closing date, is everything okay, right? You know, they're saying, oh, now that's sometimes closed, oh, the dishwasher doesn't work, or the dryer doesn't work, or the fridge doesn't work. You know, that's going to happen on closing date. So then they're going to be calling, hey, right? So it's already closed, so it's a little harder to deal with. So that's why you see lots of people now have the one walkthrough the day before closing, because they can go look at everything. If there's problems, they can go check it out. So if you're the buyer, you should have a walkthrough scheduled the day before closing that you can go make sure that those things that they were supposed to fix or remedy are done, not the day after it's closed, because then there's nothing that can be done. It's probably, they packed up, the money's changed hands. And now it's like you said, lawyers and lots of money going out the window. So make sure they do it the last day beforehand, that they can rectify things and get it cleaned up. You guys said it's gonna be broom swept condition. Well, they went there and half the shit is still there and that. It's still gonna be broom swept condition. Yeah. Right? So they got cleaners coming at a certain time, whatever the case. Just make sure. It's difficult to make a transaction. It can be just as difficult to close the transaction, right? And if you did all that work and spent all that time and spent all your money, that you do want to get paid eventually. So make sure that you're taking proactive situations to maintain that and not just leaving it up like, hey, I left it with Mark. Mark's a great lawyer. I don't have to worry about a thing. But he doesn't know what the buyers, he doesn't know them. He's working for the seller. He doesn't know what the buyer's situation is, He can only get what the lawyers and him are working on, and that's it. So that's why you got to be in communication with the other agent to make sure that he's on top of what's going on, right? Because they may not be working with what's going on, right? So I got one question, because then I'm going to open the floor, because I normally open the floor to everybody. If everyone watching today could leave with just one piece of advice to help them navigate challenging transactions with more confidence, what would that message be? And it's probably right when you started with the first word, right? I don't think that changes.
No. Did you learn something today that will help you practice? Like that was my goal when we started, that you would take something away and, and also know who to call when you need help, because I'm always available. And by the way, I still have to give away some books.